Hi.
Hi.
So I'm not sure if it was explained to you why we made this decision or to vote on it. But we have what's called ESSER funds, which Joyce will be much better explaining than I am. But there is money that we were receiving because of COVID that we don't normally have. And with that money, there's restrictions on how you can spend it. So the money that is up for vote today is not funds that we would normally have. So it's not our general funds. It's not what we're paying our teachers and paying. It's not. It's funds that if we don't spend it, we lose it. Which means, what kind of travesty would it be if we let money go that we have now just because we didn't have enough ideas to spend it? So it's
ESSER 3 is $5.3 million.
$5.3 million in about a 2 year. We have 2 years left, and we can't use it thanks to the government, to just run the district. Because if we could, well, that would be a no-brainer. We would just pay for our teachers and pay for all the things that usually come out of tax dollars. So that list that we were given is very small of what we can spend it on. We haven't had any ideas given to us recently since I've been on the board for 6 months. The first idea that came across was from our treasurer, who read a newsletter of what other districts are spending this money on. One of the ideas was, how do we give back to our community? Well, they were choosing that small section where you could buy supplies as long as it helps all students. So, like you said, you guys are helping every single family. So when it was given to us, we thought, well, the lunches are stopping, the free lunches through the government this year. This is going to be a small amount of that $5.3 million. Let's just call it $100,000 that we may lose if we don't use something. So a lot of us that were discussing thought, well, we don't want to lose it, and why not give back to everybody when we can? This will never probably happen again in our time, hopefully not, COVID money and all these things that we receive. So we're just trying to find ideas to give it back, and unfortunately, we only have a certain amount of time before school starts. What makes me sad is it was delivered as a this or your program. But to me, that's not at all what this is. Your program is helping everyone all the time. We don't really get to do that. So we wanted to use the money that we're getting, that we have only these things we can use for it, and give back when we can. So I'm hoping that if we do have that today, we can come together and make sure that message is out the same, that we want Stuff the Bus forever. That's a wonderful program. We don't want it to be this instead of. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Okay, because we're not going to be able to do this next year or the year after that or the year after that. We're not going to have that. We only have this money for 2 years. So we can only use it for so many things. This was just an idea of ways to give back, but it's not so that we're getting rid of Stuff the Bus. That's an amazing program.
So if you were in my shoes, what would you do with the program that's in process right now?
Keep going with it.
Can you redirect and maybe book bag, because we can't supply book bags, water bottles, or art shirts. Can we work together?
We don't supply, we supply book bags right now.
Book bags?
And I
book
also
bags
think
and art shirts?
even if you gather all the supplies that you need, we can still continue to use them throughout the year. There's no expiration date. And this is not something we're going to be able to get to do again. And we haven't voted on it, so it's not passed. But it was all good intent. Our intent is to help everybody. Your intent is to help everybody. We have this large amount of money that we're trying to throw ideas on how to give back to the community while we have it, because we can't use it to run the district. It's not our tax dollars we're talking about. Well, it is, but indirectly, but.
Hi, I'm Judy Summers, and my address is now mine. I didn't intend for that to happen, but we needed to do that. So in any case, I have been involved with Stuff the Bus from the very beginning, and I appreciate certainly what you are attempting to do that. Besides which, as Charlene said, we already have things in the process and already spent money this year. If we don't do Stuff the Bus this year, we have to give money back to 2 foundations that have been very generous over the years. We will not have a choice, because if you don't do a program that you ask for money for, as Joyce probably knows, you got to do something about that. So you're going to have to give that money back. And my concern is, I think they're just, after we say, well, we don't need it this year, you know, there's a government program, et cetera. That's a hefty amount of money that we have been able, thankfully, to spend over the last several years. We started out with zero funds, and Charlene said, Jimmy Poland was part of our little threesome group. And, you know, we built this program, and I'm afraid that if it stopped this year, and you mentioned book bags, I believe Club Norwalk is giving out book bags. So, you know, I'm really not quite sure how we can continue the program. That's one of the-
Is there a reason we can't do both? So this is not something we can continue doing. So is there a reason you have to give the money back and we still can't donate to Stuff the Bus? I mean, I donate to Stuff the Bus and I would still do it this year even if we were doing all
So
of
you're
the
saying
supplies.
that even though everything is free, that families will still sign up and they will still.
I mean, personally, I would because there's no reason you can't give those supplies back next year. I mean, I've had a child throughout high school and the supplies don't change very much. So if we donate a box of 24 crayons, you could probably use that in the next school year. We couldn't do this. So, you know, it's kind of one of those, you know, well, we tried to do something good. We didn't think about it, how it was going to affect negatively. We could only see how it could affect positively for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want you to think that it was, oh, well, we don't need Stuff Plus. I never even thought that one couldn't still be without the other.
Right.
So-
But it becomes a financial issue for us as well, so, you know, it's not quite that simple, but, yeah, I appreciate what you all are trying to do, it certainly makes sense.
We've already ordered $8,000 worth of supplies, and then we're going to have to give the money back.
There's nobody saying that you
Yeah.
can't donate.
Yes, I understand.
That's, I don't understand.
Who's telling you have to give it back because we're gonna do this? That's why?
Well, the Stuff the Bus program,
We're not stopping
Yeah.
the
We're
program.
not.
We don't want to stop the program.
so
Yes.
you want all the kids to get 2 sets of school supplies?
What we're trying to do is help every single family that we possibly can in the school district. Not just a select few, but all of them. There's no reason that both programs can't run together. So some of them do get extra supplies that have already signed up. There's nothing wrong with that because they're going to use them. I don't know, we're just trying to help the families, every family that we can in the district.
It's gonna be an extra, because we've already expected that we're gonna have extra supplies. We're able to store those extra supplies, and possibly after Christmas break, winter break, we can refresh some of those supplies because we have them. We haven't been able to do something like that, but, we're not asking anyone to stop the bus. That's no intentions whatsoever. So I think it's just, been misunderstood as far as why we're doing what we're doing. It's in addition to what you've already been doing.
So we will never be able to do again when we don't have this kind of
Right.
extra
No,
money
I
that
mean-
has these rules set to them. But we definitely don't want to do anything that would hurt a program that you worked hard for. That was never an intent at all. And if we would have had this newsletter come 3 months ago and, oh, wow, other school districts are doing this is a wonderful way to give back, then we would have said that in March. But unfortunately, it was not even something that was really spelled out on the list of things we could do. But we thought it was something to vote on that helps everyone equally. That was what I thought.
I think, I don't know, if you- I don't think that people are going to come and pick up the book bags. If they know that they can send their kid to school and all the supplies are going to be there, we already have a problem with them not picking them up. And then we're gonna end up with all the stuff that we purchased. And this doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. I don't see how, if I'm a parent and I have my kids and they need glue and crayons and you're gonna give them to them for free.
Charlene,
Yes,
are you saying that you're not giving out book bags?
we are. And we need a book bag that has everything that they need.
Okay, so what about, you said you only had 400 and some parents. sign up so far?
453 so far.
We have, how many?
How many students do we have?
How many students we have total?
1,743 K-8.
Okay, so the other 1,200 students, then if they don't come to you, they're not getting the school supplies. So that's just our way of helping the parents that don't come to you, because maybe some parents think, well, you know, I'm fluent enough that I don't have to ask for a handout, is what they call it. Well, then this way, we're helping the parents that don't come to you. I mean, you know, we're not saying that they can't come to you, because if they come to you, that might be less supplies that we have to buy. In the end, we know how much, and look at. I mean, I assume that we're going to pass out what they still need, right? But then, to me, that's a no-brainer, because some parents aren't coming because they're too ashamed to. So we're reaching those parents. That's all.
While we can.
Right.
While we can. So I feel bad with the timing, because that was not at all, I understand the timing. If we would have seen this newsletter in March, I think that we could have had a lot more conversations before, and you wouldn't have done what you have done. But I don't think that you don't have to do what you're doing, because your program is wonderful, and it doesn't have to be either or.
People are
I
still
really
gonna
don't think it
come.
has to be either or.
If anything's free, people are still gonna come.
People pretty well quit signing up. The numbers are amazingly ridiculous on the first 4 days of the sign up versus the 2 families that signed up today. You know, that we're buying for 500 to 600, and we're at 453. But we only had really 4 days of 8 days of sign up.
Well, again, I'm hoping that no matter how we vote tonight, we can work together so the community knows what's happening in general, that we're not using general funds that we would be able to do every time. This is not something we could do. Our intent is to help everybody and not take away from Stop the Bus. It's a wonderful program, and it should continue, and we want to help with that. If there's any way that Joyce, if we can look at things, maybe we can help each other even more. But there was no ill intent, and I'm not sure how it was communicated, but I don't think that a charity has to go away because we were able to do something else. I don't think it has to be either or. I would hope that it wouldn't have to be either or. I'm hoping parents would understand.
We can work together.
I feel like we can make up the difference for the parents that aren't in your program. The rest of them, because like I said, we have 1,743 students K-8. We weren't doing this at the high school level because there's just so much more specific to what their classes are. It's hard to do anything school supply wise. But if we could just make up the difference for the students that you don't normally have, is that, by what you've already purchased, does that take care of your foundation funds? The grant funding that you have received?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point in working at cross purposes. We want to work together, but I guess the intent is we want to help every one of our families. And I think probably some families don't think that program is for them. So, but we want to help them all. We can. Right? And we only have 2 years for this funding. We've been trying to come up with different ideas along the way of, things that we can do to help families. So one of them was, no school fees. We the last 2 years haven't had school fees or participation fees. That was helpful with boosters, but then the ESSER funds picked up the rest of that, so we haven't had any of that. I feel like we could work together on that.
Yeah.
And Rita was as well.
Yeah, we did.
Did you still want to say something?
I'm Rita Stark. I live at 248. I 2478 Ridge Road, and I have been involved with this since the very first concept. And I totally agree with what Judy and Sharon said. My concern is you have money for 2 years. Right? So if you give everybody supplies this year, and it's very admirable to give to everybody, so everybody is equal. And then we do it next year, how will Stuff the Bus pick up again in the third year? I mean, we worked really hard to raise money to keep this program going. And I can just see, like the better term, the guy in the water. because people will say, well, because they have more money coming, you know, the government always comes first.
I think you're completely right. I think that how we communicate what we're doing as a school district and as our admin team, how we communicate why we did what we did and how we're doing it and why we can do it this year and can't other years, I think makes a huge difference on how this is taken. I didn't even see the negative effect of how it could hurt you guys until after it was brought to me. And even then I thought, geez, we're trying to do something good and we don't want to hurt something great.
And
So
we
I think it's how we
understand that you were
communicate.
trying to do something good for everyone.
Right.
Because it's just gonna actually, we just feel it's gonna kill, absolutely kill the program.
Well, I
And
hope
it's
that
actually
that's
years
not good, that's definitely not the case, and we definitely were talking about is future of next year, we're gonna do it next year, but I think that we would definitely wanna work together so that doesn't happen. So we need to keep our communication up and help parents understand there isn't this or that. I think that as long as this team up here is all on the same page, it's not this or that, and why we're doing it, we can continue to stop the bus. It's been here for many years, and I don't see that, me as a parent, not giving to that program, so.
But how will you decide which kids got supplies from us, and then you will deliver those other supplies to the children who didn't get them at the school before school starts, and you're singling out those kids?
You said you have a sign-up list,
Yes, we have a sign up.
so we could cross-reference
What's
what's
on your, is that central?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I would think that would be an easy cross-reference, you know, depending on how we deliver the supplies. Usually cross-reference to how many we're still missing or how we can make that list.
Mrs. Kirschbaum.
Amy Kirschbaum, 16 Townsend Avenue in Norwalk. And I like to spend money, so I'm sitting here thinking as a classroom teacher, wow, I don't know what this money can be used for. I heard you say a very small list, but I know in my experience as an elementary and then my daughters who went through, there's always mid-year supplies that we run out of: construction paper, tissues, Clorox wipes, dry erase markers. The boards get broken or used, Ziploc bags, paper towels that are not the brown school towels, but Bounty that we can clean, or, you know, not Bounty, but something comparable. The 3-subject and single-subject notebooks. I mean, I was just thinking, I don't know what things can be bought or even supplies for mid-year for those students. You know, we come back after Christmas and before Christmas. You parents may get those emails from your teachers or newsletters saying, oh, great idea to purchase over break or something like that. And we're always looking and spending a lot of times, and Stop the Bus has been so generous to bring us boxes of unused supplies but then those get distributed early on in the year. We try to hoard some back, but I'm just thinking about that mid-year where we could bridge that from January to the end of the year, that second semester of supply run that we tend to run out. Because I know as a parent buying for 2 the same time every year, it gets overwhelming. You know, I think, oh, I should stock up now in August while it's 25 cents a box of crayons. But then though it adds up, and I only had 2, and for parents who have more, you have those good intentions, but it's not always fiscally possible to do. So that was just something, and I don't know what funds or what you're allowed to spend it on, but just from a teacher's perspective, and I know secondary, they run out of things too.
Right.
Maybe a little more. I know we had to purchase a calculator one year for one of my daughters and things like that. So that was just my ideas.
I know that on Mr. Cooley's list of goals is to, in the next few months, get input from the principals and the teachers on what we could do with this money. That's something that he has in his goals, and then to get an ironclad plan and then present it to the board. So we're not throwing out ideas and hurting anything.
But like I said, I like to spend money and I'd be happy to give my input.
We can find those people for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, she's your girl, obviously. But yeah, I think it's all good intent.
Yes.
And we want to make sure we don't hurt anything with
Right.
good intent.
Anybody
So
else have
hopefully we can figure that out together.
Anything else?
Well, if you're planning on Stuff the Bus continuing in full force, are you going to consider getting us back on track? Because we have definitely been derailed as far as the supplies we're buying versus the kids that are signing up. The rumor is out there that they don't have to buy them, so they're not signing up.
I think we
We
can
have
definitely
3
do something
days
from
left.
the district, saying that one doesn't exclude the other, clear up any confusion.
I'm sure.
We have 3 days of sign up left. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
That'll be up to them right there to, hopefully
Well,
help us.
Or a one
help
call
explain
from the
We
district.
kicked it off with
in
a
the
one
papers.
call.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
yeah, but with the newspapers explaining it, it's not this or that.
But yeah, we could
That's a
even talk to
combination.
Mr. Cooley here and see if we could do a one call to explain that one is not canceling the other. And it's very important to us, the program that you run, and for it to continue in the future. And our intent is only to help everybody when we can, but it's not to exclude who you are helping.
And to make sure I'm understanding correctly, you're planning on doing this again next year?
We haven't even talked about it, so you're ahead of me.
I really think that we would appreciate knowing upfront
Well, we didn't
what's
know.
going to
Yeah,
happen.
this
We-
was,
we
this
told
was, this was last minute.
This is
Tuesday.
out of nowhere, and this came down and it just kind of happened. So that's
It's
why
just
this
the
is the way it is right
timing.
now.
The timing of your announcement, and the timing of this, it just kind of, I guess, put a cloud on everything, and it had no intentions of saying, you're done with your program, absolutely not. So it's just timing and last minute, and, I mean, we're here to work with your group, and we want to,
Everybody.
Yeah,
I think it's on us to help clear up the confusion.
so,
So we'll help
yeah.
with that.
So I'm looking
and hopefully
forward
you'll get
to
more signups here.
some
next-
interaction here on how you're going to help us out.
I mean, if I will help in any way if you want. I'm part of a parent group on social media, so I can shoot it out there that one is not canceling the other. I was waiting for the vote tonight, obviously, because we can't do any voting until we're in a meeting. So even though we've been talking about adding it to the agenda, there has not been an official vote. So we could help get that out, and then I'm sure that our admin team can help, central office can help get the message out that one is not canceling the other.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, do you want me to stand up? I can.
You don't have to stand up, just like we can hear you.
Well, she's the meat she's making. My name's Rick Brown, 87 Old State Road, south in Norwalk. Since there's only 4 days left in their sign-up program, you vote no tonight, okay, to give the money to the book bags and things. And that way, those people have 4 more days to sign up. If they don't sign up, then you spend the money after their Stuff the Bus is closed. So you're still buying things and you're not stepping on their toes. We voted down tonight, and you take it and pick it up again in August and say, we're going to supply these things. That way, it's not hurting their sign up. If you vote it down now and you wait, it doesn't hurt their sign up, and then they can continue to next year and the next year after that and next year after that. The timing is wrong. Okay, so if you wait and then, well, you get the idea.
Right.
If you wait, then it's.
Yeah, I think that they have to have a certain amount of time in the central office to purchase everything and get it all coordinated by the start of school, which is why we tried to hurry up and get this thrown on to vote for it too. So I
Well,
think we're kind of.
yeah,
even if
and
we
you
do,
just
even
don't
if we
want to, you just don't want to discourage that, because that needs to stay around. So, obviously, if you vote it down tonight and you say, there are 4 more days of sign up, and then you can always revisit it. You can always go back. You can always, school's gonna come, and if we have to wait a little while to get some things, then we wait a little while. We always do. So, I don't want that to hurt, and I want you guys to be able to do what you need to do, but you want them both to exist at the same time. So, let them have their 4 days of sign up, get the word out that you have 4 more days to sign up, and then make a decision in August or whenever you want. You can talk, you're on the board, you don't have to raise your hand.
Now, Mr. Brown, I guess the only problem I have with that is, if we would vote it down tonight.
Yeah.
And we wait till August, which will probably be what, the third week of August, right?
I think we moved on our.
Yeah, because we moved our board meeting back in a week. So we'll be waiting on the third week of August. A lot of parents are gonna go out and start purchasing their own stuff.
That's
And
true.
then all of a sudden, we come up with the money and say, hey, yeah, you can have a lot of ticked off parents then.
We're trying to save everyone in the district money from K through 8.
And
So many families out.
that's a great thing. I just think that if you wait a little while until their sign up is done, then you can go ahead and do that. Now, I understand that the meeting is not until August, and that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get them both. They're both fine.
The only other way would be call a special board meeting, and I don't wanna do that.
No.
Are you seeing special board meetings?
No, I want Ralph to make extra money.
Well, you could also just order supplies that you could keep. Not real, just say, we're keeping this in for the families, and just order it and let them have their 4 days, and you can order it when you want to order it. I mean, it doesn't have to be, obviously you have to vote on the ESSER funds, but if you're buying supplies, I'm not sure how you would do that. That's more of the treasurer thing, and I don't math. I color and draw, and I don't math. So.
We appreciate everybody's feedback very much. We're gonna move on to the treasurer's reports.
Okay. We have the minutes for the June 21st regular meeting, and of course the special meeting that we have June 29th. I did say we want to go ahead and pull the financial reports off for June. The reason for this is June ends our fiscal year, and we're still waiting on quite a few things to get finalized to end the year. Because we're on a cash basis, it really makes a big difference. I still have $328,000 worth of encumbrances, things that we have ordered that have not been paid for yet. Some of that is going to stay waiting, like school buses and the maintenance truck. So there's probably $200,000 worth of that, but that still leaves us with quite a few. Like we just today received the electric bill for June, and we just received our Fisher Titus bill for June. So I like to get those expenses. It's really important at the end of the year to get those expenses into the correct year, because both our forecast and our financial statements are done on a cash basis. We don't show accrual, so we don't show that we have these outstanding bills. So our revenue all shows the one time in our accounts. So I thought about, we're balanced, but I just feel like I wanted a few more days to get the rest of these in before we actually close out the year and start fresh. So that's why I would like to pull the June financial reports off. Then we do have a disposal. Norwalk Catholic School, of course, their auxiliary funds run through the district, and they're requesting, it was pretty much just old curriculum supplies and odds and ends that they are looking to replace, so the list is on there. And we have the pay rate for learning loss for long-term substitutes. This was something that we did last year. Last year we only had two at two of the buildings, but I think this year they may be looking to do more long-term substitutes with $120 as a daily rate for the subs. And this is coming out of our ESSER funds, because this is, we do have a list here of what we can use ESSER funds for. We can use it for, 20% of our 5.3 million has to be for learning loss, and that's what we look for our long-term substitute, is to work with the students one-on-one or in small groups to address them. And then, of course, the school supplies, which kind of realized we already had this discussion. I'm sorry, I would have put this as a separate item. And we are looking at only doing the K-8, no book bags, no water bottles, no art shirts. And I really feel that we can coordinate together so that we're not purchasing the ones first off the bus, but they're still doing their program. And as I said, when I figured it, just in asking around what people pay on school supplies, looking at the list, I got estimates of anywhere from $40 to $75 per child per grade level. Looking at our K-8, we have 1,743 students. The total cost of the program would be $87,150 is what I figured with an estimate there. For buying, as a school district, buying in bulk is a little bit cheaper than just going to the store and buying it. So that makes a difference too. That's why I went with the 50 and the low end of the estimate of what was on there. And that's all I have.
We have a motion for treasurer's reports, items A1 through 5.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
And any discussion? Further discussion? I know you mentioned something about that some parents don't come and pick up the book bags that you guys have. And maybe we can work together to help distribute somehow, you know, 'cause we want to work together. Because there's no, if this passes, we're not saying this is the end of your program, absolutely not. It's just, this is an addition and we want to work together. So if you need help on something, you know, say something to us, and then we'll continue to have this open door, you know, if we proceed in the future, and then as far as what goes on in that area.
May I ask what your name is? I can't read that.
Lisa
Lisa.
Witt. Roll call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Whitsenfeller?
Yes.
Mrs. Witt?
Yes. Superintendent's reports.
Yes, after weeks and weeks of policy review, we are finally here looking to rescind the OSBA policies that we've used for some years and to adopt the Pepple and Wagner board policies, which is the attorney, the firm that we use currently for other items. So looking to adopt that policy manual that'll go in effect after this vote this evening. We have handbooks, multi-leveled there. We have preschool, elementary, Main Street, Norwalk Middle School. Those were sent to you, highlighted the changes. So those that have been corrected and are ready for approval. Number 3 is an administrative handbook. That is essentially our middle management association, or MMA, that defines their salary schedule and kind of the terms of their employment. So that includes all of our principals, our one assistant principal here at Norwalk High School, and multi-levels of our director positions that exist in our district. Number 4, we have Midwest Regional ESC contract for vision impaired services. That's based on one of our students that needs that service, so that's why that's built in into the item for approval. And the number 5 there is Huron County Board of Developmental Disabilities contract for the 22-23. We have had some discussion on that, and that is up for approval this evening as well.
I did have a question on number 5 there. Joyce, is it true that Christine Lane is operated by the Huron County Board of Developmental Disabilities and that they receive all the state and federal funding for students that attend there? We only have 2, and they have a total of 8. And we paid over $104,000.
Correct. Christie Lane is operated as a Board of DD school. They receive all of the state and federal funding. Federal funding is the IDEA money that comes per student. The state funding is both the base funding, and there's a special education weighted funding. It's a bit of a disconnect in revised code that, and it's also federal law that says that public school districts have to be the one to make sure that services are provided to special education students. But at the state level, the funding goes to the Board of DD school, which is, although public, not defined as a public school district. So therefore, they receive the funding, but they don't receive the mandate to provide the services. So parents in their IEP process, individualized education plan process, can work with our special ed department in determining the placement of students. So when a parent in our special ed team decides they want to place a student in a different, outside of our school district, like North Point units or the ESC or the ALC or Christie Lane, then that's determined by the team, and we pay for that when a student goes somewhere else, but we do receive state funding. But for some reason, the boards of ED, it's different. The DD actually receives the funding for it, but they're not really required to provide the service, so they're able to bill us back what they call excess costs. So they come up with a number of what they feel they spent over their state funding, and then they bill us for any direct costs. So with the DD, we've been paying for aides for we only have 2 students, I think we might have 3, it varies, students there, but 2 of the students have had an aide. So we've had to pay, as part of the agreement, the entire amount of the aid for the student. One-on-one aides, not just their regular classroom aides. So it does create a bit of a disconnect between the funding and how it works.
So we're not receiving any funds for it, we're paying for it.
Yes.
The taxpayers are being billed for it through our tax dollars for the school district, then they're being again taxed through the state funds and again taxed by federal funds, because that's all going into the Huron.
Right.
So-
They receive, yes, both the state and the federal funds, but school districts, and this is true not only for Christie Lane, but private schools, we're still required to do the IEP for a student. We're not required, if a student goes to a private school, they give up what's called free and appropriate public education. They also give up all of their special education rights under the IDA law, the federal law that says you have to provide services. They also give that up when they go to private schools, but we're still responsible for the IEP. The difference there is we don't have to pay for the services like we do if they stay a resident student and they enroll in Norwalk and then end up in like a North Point unit or there's different school districts that have different units. It works kind of the same way with the federal funds. IDA federal funds, we're responsible for any student that attends at any of the private schools if it's a special ed student. So if they're going to, in our case, it would be Norwalk Catholic because they're only in-district private school. We are still responsible for providing services through the equitable services of our federal money for those students. Even if they live in Bellevue City, but they come to an in-district school. So federal law when it comes to special ed is intricate. There's a lot to it. I really think with the DD thing, this is something after getting deep into this year, we need to look at on a state level because it's the state funding that's the issue. And we have the same thing with the JVS, with eHobie. All of the funding for special ed students for eHobie goes to eHobie. We receive 20%, which covers like our counselor time and transportation and different things like that. But all of the special ed rated funding goes to eHobie as a JVS. But we're still required to pay for those services, for special ed services at eHobie, under the same rule that the public district has to pay for it. Because when you read revised code, it talks about local, city, and exempted villages. It doesn't say joint vocational school district. So even though they're a public school, they're not required to provide those services. So they have 2 options. They either bill us or they say we're not going to provide it, in which case the district would have to send a teacher over there, an intervention specialist or something to help the students. So this just kind of came onto my radar in the last year or two, and I've really been working into it. But I think it's something we need to really talk to legislatures about because school funding is so complicated that I don't think a lot of our legislators understand it or understand the funding. You know, that in this case, they're receiving the funding, we're paying for it on top of their receiving the funding. And there isn't really anything that a public district can do because we have to serve these students by law, federal law. That was kind of a long answer, sorry.
That kind of clarifies it.
Yeah,
But thank you.
yeah.
Motion for approval for superintendent's reports, items A1 through 5.
Second.
Thank you, second. Any more discussion? Other questions? Roll call?
Mrs. Crawford?
Yeah.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenfeller?
Yes.
Mrs. Wick?
Yes. Items for information. I don't know of anything on the legislative report. You guys have any updates? Joyce, no. Hobie news.
And I I passed out this summer community connection from Yehovah to everybody into the press here. This is their update for the summer. I updated you last time, and in my update, I said that we were looking for a science teacher. Last Friday, we held a special board meeting, and they hired another science teacher with 9 years' experience, which I'm very thrilled about, getting on that much experience. And so we had to have a special board meeting to do that last Friday. So that's about the only update that's not on here. This talks about an update from the superintendent, and then a little bit more about the principal on the back, and some testimonials for the business. And on the back, it talks about the financial update and so forth. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel.
Yes, on to personnel. A1, we accepting the resignation of Porter Ream, Director of Operations. Wish him well. I think we can speak for the entire board, the entire group up here. Wish him well as he leads the Edison local school district. Number 2, we had hired Evan Engelhardt as a teacher, and he was a coach at Perkins, and he actually landed a Perkins intervention specialist position. So he is resigning before he actually began teaching with us, but given his living location and his coaching arrangement, it makes sense for him. So it's a loss, and but that is his situation. Number 3, Chris Higgins, accepting his resignation as the head girls tennis coach. And we have also assistant football coach in Trey Tyree. Employment, seeking the approval for the employment of Rick Hudgel as the Main Street principal. So glad to have Dan Ballman sitting next to me here, and very excited to hire Rick Hudgel. He comes with a lot of experience, both public and private sector. He has worked in Crooksville. He's been at Kenton. He's been recently at Terra State, so he's worked with university level. He's got a master's in addition to educational administration. He's got a master's in Homeland Security. So he'll bring a nice twist for us with our security threat group, our building and crisis response team, to have someone with that type of experience. So he's worked in diverse situations with at-risk students. So he brings a lot to the table. What our group, and we had Main Street teachers involved, and Mr. Ballman and myself, what we're most impressed about Rick, like, he was data driven. He's a relationship guy, and when you meet him, you'll see that very much, that he makes connection with kids, and all the reference checks that I made with him, like, that was the number one, that he connects with people, and people know that he's invested in their life. So that's very much appreciative of having him interview. And like I said, he went through a difficult round 2 because we tasked them with multiple assignments that they had to show, and he showed himself very well, and happy to recommend him. Number 6, employment of Abigail Butler. She is our intervention specialist at Maplehurst. So that is filling the position of Jenica Reamer, who had hired in the previous meeting for the literacy coordinator position. So that is that position. Number 7 is the employment of Teresa Ely. She is replacing Brian Definette as the business teacher at Norwalk High School. She does have military experience, so that's what we're looking at, that level of credit that she will earn with her experience in the military as well. Number 8, employment of Alyssa Valentine. She is replacing Beth Scheid, who was the Title I teacher, who's now gone to the literacy coordinator position at Pleasant. So Alyssa Valentine is being recommended for Title I teacher at that location. Alyssa Diaz has English services for 30 hours per week for a student, effective and started yesterday. Beth Scheid, Jenna Karimo mentioned already as our literacy coordinators. They are getting time. So we basically have programs that are in place, and they're having to get days and spent this summer before we actually begin the school year. So looking to recommend them to have 7 days of approval at their daily rate to prepare. And I know Jen Gerber sitting here, she has done a lot of work working with them to get those programs in order. So that flows into number 11, which is essentially 2 teachers from both Maple and Pleasant to then work on the 2 programs that exist in 2 different buildings. So we're going Orton Gillingham across the board. So when you see OG and emails and texts, that's what it's referencing, but we have Super Kids and Ready Gen. So that's a combination. So besides the support of Beth and Jenica, you have the 4 teachers listed there: Maisha Dotson, Ashley Hillman, Tiffany Lloyd, and Lindsay Silverwood. Number 12, Adam Kreischer, $2,000 stipend to serve as the Director of Alternative Discipline Programs at Norwalk High School. That has been in place for some time, so that's essentially covering the discipline for Norwalk High School, Norwalk Middle School, and sometimes you're having Main Street. Dan can speak to that in the past, where Main Street students would be involved. So that entails Saturday school, that entails Friday school, involved in that part. So that has been tied to the assistant principal, and that goes back well before myself with Kirk Pavlich. So you're probably in the early 2000s. That's been in place. So that is, that's been very consistent. That's Adam Kreischer now, since you have approved him in the swap to be assistant principal at Norwalk High. Brock Manlett is a $2,000 stipend to serve as the Norwalk Middle School site manager. That is working in conjunction, in combination with Gary Swartz and Ray Scheid to cover all events. As we know, we expand events, more things are happening. So Ray Scheid is still our athletic director at the middle school level. Brock will simply be the one who has site management. So bringing officials in, making sure they're seconding drinks, paying people, making sure the gates covered, all of those aspects. So as athletics grow, the need for multiple coverage of those events also grow. Number 14, we have a long list there of kindergarten screening teachers that are helping that. A lot of those same names, as we know, have appeared in the past because they're in the positions there at Mayflower. So Mr. Moore spoke with him today. We currently have 166. That's our number of students that are enrolled at this day, at this time for kindergarten. And going from past years, which Ken has a lot of experience to speak to, he says typically as the school year draws near, you're getting another 20, 25 individual students. So if you get there, you're close to that kind of 190, 200, where a lot of our classes have been averaging in Norwalk City School District. So that is the number there. Looking at coaching supplemental contracts, number 15, we have volleyball, head boys basketball coach, and Melanie Zerman as sophomore class advisor. So Olivia Gamble, Norwalk Middle School volleyball, replacing and helping assist after Coach Timmons has left. Adam Kreischer is head boys basketball, and Melanie Zerman, high school teacher, to be sophomore class advisor. Special contracts, those are individuals that are not teachers and current employees with us, but are coaching and therefore put on the special contract with a quota and a step. So you have a handful of a couple football, tennis, cross country, and another football. And then 17, we have a listing of volunteers for tennis, volleyball, and football. So that completes the personnel.
So number 12 is something we've always done for the assistant principal at the high school. Correct? Now, we haven't usually had the assistant principal at the high school also be the head coach to any sport.
Right.
Is that going to change how often that he's doing this role that we're signing up for right here too? Or should that change?
So it is need-based, so I can speak to when I was assistant principal, I typically ran 14 Saturday schools from 7:30 until noon. Mr. Kenya in recent years has switched to a Friday school. You look at attendance on where do you get kids when kids are in school that day, keep them there, and then we handle transportation, we make sure parents, families can pick up their child on a Friday. So that has changed over time. Mm-hmm. It is somewhat need-based, so this is not tied to, when you say loosely, a $2,000 stipend, because it has varied. So when I say I was consistent at 14, Mr. Kenya may say we only have, because typically at the beginning of the school year, if it's a lot of attendance tardy-based items, that's not going to be happening in clearly August, September, October. Those numbers aren't going to hit on Dazzle until probably October, November. So that's when those things like frequent, and when Mr. Baum in a handful of situations would hand, a 5th or 6th grade student there, you have a decent amount of middle school kids, but it's a lot of attendance-based. And then you have, with our current issue that's Norwalk and everywhere else, is the vaping, which is. I just
wanted to make sure it wasn't throwing so much at him. I mean,
right.
It just isn't something we normally have, so.
Right.
Just want to make sure we're not.
So that's what it is. And like I said, that was, I started in 2004 or 5 at the high school, and that was in place. And that same dollar figure was in place. So that stayed consistent. That wasn't like a step-based, like that was a flat-out stipend. But to say exactly, like, is that on the books right now to say it is still 14? No, because I would expect Mr. Kenya liked the Friday because he started seeing attendance issues that you're not getting the students that need to be there on a Saturday to show up.
Right.
So you don't want to treat it as like, you want this like any discipline, it's a learning scenario. You don't, it's not punishment, like I have to stay in school and there's a punishment. Like, we are doing things, so it's a learning process, and usually packets based on that, so it's not just the pain of locking you in a school setting. That is never our goal, so.
Motion for approval for personnel items A1 through 17. A second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford? Mr. Itzenhour?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes. Any further board discussion? Anything?
There may be a need, so we talked about our weekly board meetings. There may be a need, so we had OPSI bargaining, and we met face to face for a second time, and a lot of email exchanges back and forth in that, the first time in the second meeting. So that occurred Friday, and what I can report for Mrs. Crawford, Mrs. Pont, that we came to a tentative agreement, so there is a TA on all items. That piece has to go to the membership. So the membership and the current plan is that'll occur on July 18th. So there is, depending on Mrs. Pont and I discussed this, whether we want to have an early August meeting to ratify that, assuming the membership does indeed pass that. So that is just to put on your calendar the potential, and let you know where that's occurred. So, okay.
Okay, and at this time, we have a motion for an executive session to consider employment of public employees, evaluation of superintendent.
So moved.
A second,
Second.
roll call?
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Itzenhour?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes. And there may be further discussion after our executive. So we can hang out.
Might be a.
Yeah, it might be it. So you can hang out and find out, or? Okay, so are we going down to the workroom? We usually use that workroom over there. Okay. Need time?
on the,
Second,
I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
okay,
Second.
second, all right, roll call.
I didn't hear who was first. Jeremy?
Jeremy,
Terry?
Jeremy?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
yes,
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenhour?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynn?
anybody, but,
Got it.
anybody votes no, because
Since I don't have more than one copy of this, I'll,
Yeah, so we're actually meet with Rick at 8. So if you want to meet